Chapter 8. I want to see Puppy, Amani, Keelan said. Her name's Cricket. I sat the puppy down on the ground and she went to Keelan right away. She sniffed his little pudgy barefoot toes, then came running back to me. Cricket ran to each person and sniffed, every time coming to me afterward like she needed to make sure I was still there. Everyone was laughing and I was having the best birthday ever. Out of nowhere, a small dead tree branch flew right in front of my face. If I wouldn't have ducked when I did, that splintered branch would have hit me right upside my head. That's when I first noticed how hard the wind was blowing. The same trees that had been swaying and bringing me comfort the day before were looking like giant, dancing, house-crushing monsters. Pin prickles spread across the back of my neck. Goodness gracious, Mima said. Catherine, I think we should take these children inside. Mama looked up at the sky. Mr. Curtis, she said, never taking her eyes off the changing sky. How much longer until that jambalaya is done? Before Daddy could answer, a paper plate full of chips flew off the table and danced across the yard, getting lost up in Mama's grapevine. Just then, Denisha and Bugger's gonna-be stepdaddy, Mr. Charlie, came running into the yard, breathing like he'd run all the way from Mississippi. I scooped up Cricket. T-Bone, Mr. Charlie hollered. He ran over to where Uncle T-Bone was stirring the jambalaya pot. Hey, man, what's up? My uncle said. Mr. Charlie looked around the yard at all of us. Don't y'all know what's going on out there? He pointed with his thumb toward our fence. Spit flew out of his mouth every time he said something. His eyes got narrow like little slits, and he started shaking his head back and forth. Charlie, calm down, Daddy said, stepping closer to the man. Mama walked over with Keelan planted on her hip. Are you hungry, Charlie? Armani, get Mr. Charlie a plate. Mr. Charlie mumbled, No, ma'am, I won't be staying. He kept fidgeting with the dirty ball cap on his head. I need to get back to my place. They're all waiting on me so we can head out. He turned away from Mama and looked real hard at Daddy and Uncle T-Bone. I scooched all quiet to the other side of the big tree. Ain't y'all got no sense? Mr. Charlie whisper-spit at Daddy, looking over his shoulder at us kids. In a lower, not-so-spitty voice, he said, Look, man, I ain't trying to scare y'all, but the mayor's telling everyone to get out of Nolans. Ain't y'all been watching the news? Like the weather was trying to help to make the man's point, the wind gushed through the yard, causing half our slide to blow and flap and make slapping sounds. I held Cricket a little tighter. Out of the corner of my eye, I seen Mima and Mama gathering up the little ones and chewing them inside. Miss was standing off by herself, smoking a cigarette, trying to hold to her tangerine hat. Tay-Tay turned off the hose pipe and stood over by the screen door. She waved her hand for me to come on. I gave her the I'll be there in a minute signal. Little Cricket's nose was all snuggled up against me. Daddy took a hold of Mr. Charlie's elbow and led him to the other side of the jambalaya pot. I put all my focus on my ears. Slow down, Charlie, and tell me what's happening. Daddy's voice was calm, but his words came out in a hurry. Mr. Charlie took a deep breath. About an hour ago, Mayor Nagin came on the TV and ordered an evacuation of the entire city. My stomach twitched and tightened up. I seen Georgie. I could tell, by the way his mouth was hanging open, that he'd heard the word evacuation, too. They're telling everyone to leave. The hurricane's a Cat 5, bro. Y'all best get them kids out of the nines. There ain't much time. Mr. Charlie was talking fast, and spit was flying all over the place. I could barely keep up. Something bad was happening. Something really bad. Category 5? Daddy asked. Are you sure, Charlie? A Category 5 would wipe New Orleans off the map. I started to breathe faster. The trees started to bend further. Man, Uncle T-Bone said, shaking his head from side to side, this happens every time. They tell us it's going to be the big one, and it turns out to be nothing but a storm. It don't do nothing but cause confusion and cost money that I ain't got. You know what I'm saying? I felt a tug on the back of my shirt. Celie was standing there behind me. The girl was wearing a bathing suit with that silly book sack strapped to her back. Her whole body was shivering and her teeth were chattering even though it was about 200 degrees outside. I wanted to yell at her to get on in the house with Mama, but I didn't want Daddy to know I was listening in on his conversation. I took a hold of her hand instead. Uncle T-Bone put his head down and walked in a tight circle, kicking at the ground. He stopped and looked at Mr. Charlie. Evacuation. You mean to tell me they expect everybody To evacuate the city? You gotta be kidding me. I'm so sick of this bureaucratic crap, man. He went back to walking the tiny circle, the whole time shaking his head and kicking grass. I gave Seely's hand a squeeze and snuggled Cricket up under my chin. That's what I'm saying, T, Mr. Charlie said. It don't look good, man. I'm serious. Y'all need to get them kids somewhere safe. I can't. Daddy was rubbing his head with his eyes squeezed shut. I don't have room for Catherine and all the kids in my truck, and I've got Mama Jean to think about. Look, man, Uncle T said, we can load up my car too. You know I ain't gonna leave you hanging, bro. T-Bone, George, look, y'all don't understand. Mr. Charlie shook his head. The mayor can say leave Nolans all he wants. Y'all won't never get out of the city now. It's too late. The man sounded pitiful, standing there, shaking his big old hanging head, talking in circles and looking at the ground. Daddy nudged Mr. Charlie's head up real gentle-like so he could see the man's face. Charlie, what do you mean it's too late? There ain't no leaving Nolans, George. Nobody can get out of the city. Not nobody. Ever since the mayor ordered the evacuation, there ain't nothing but wall-to-wall cars on the interstate. The longer Mr. Charlie talked, the higher his voice got. I talked to a buddy of mine from Gentilly about 30 minutes ago. He left at 10 o'clock this morning and sat still so long he about ran out of gas. The interstate's deadlocked, man. He turned his car around and came back. The only ones who made it out were the ones who left yesterday, and the smart ones left Friday. A gasp came from the bushes. There was Georgie with his hand over his mouth and his eyes all bugged out. I knew he was thinking about the Babineaus the way he looked at me. My heartbeat was pounding up in my head. No one said a word. Daddy stared up where the dark clouds raced across the sky. They waited too long to tell us this time, Mr. Charlie said, and let out a long sigh. Why did you say you're leaving, Charlie, if no one can leave? Daddy sounded tired. Oh, I'm leaving all right. I ain't going to be caught with my pants down. I'm taking my old lady and the kids, and I'm getting somewhere safe while I can. We ain't staying down here in the lower nines, man. Do y'all know what's going to happen if them levees break? Daddy cleared his throat. His eyes were heavy. I still don't understand where you're going. To the Superdome, bro. Lots of spit went flying. They're calling it the refuge of the last resort. Can you believe that? He nervous laughed. The radio says that anyone who can't get out of the city can come hang out there until the storm passes. My old lady packed us some food and drinks. She figured it'd be best to stay at the Dome, just to be safe with the kids and all. Mr. Charlie shook Daddy's hand. Look, man, I best be going. He gave Uncle T-Bone a handshake hug and patted him on the back. Don't stay here, T. It ain't going to be good, man. Seriously, go to the Dome. Then the man left as quickly as he'd come. Nobody moved or said a word. We all stayed put, pondering on what Mr. Charlie had just said. The old screen door slammed shut. Kayla hurried into the yard, all but tripping over her own clumsy feet. The lights runned out, Daddy. The lights runned out. Oh, no, Daddy said. I think we just lost power.